Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. Let us continue with the chapter Diversity in Living Organisms. This is the 24th theory session of this chapter, and in this chapter I am going to continue with the topic classification. Right? In the previous session I was discussing about the classification of animals. Kingdom Animalia is divided into two groups, right? On the basis of what? On the basis of presence and the absence of the notochord. So those which are not having the notochord, they are forming a common group or a single group which is known as invertebrata or the non-chordate, right? And the another group where the notochord is present, it is known as the chordata. Now this chordata further, in which the notochord is actually present, they are further subdivided on the basis of the development of this notochord. That means whether it is present in the primitive stage, so it will constitute the group known as protochordata, and if it is well developed, then it is known as the group vertebrata. So vertebrata is the group which includes those organisms or those animals in which the notochord is replaced by the vertebral column. And this group which is having the vertebral column, it includes the superclass, that is Pisces, that we have already studied in the previous session, and next is the tetrapoda. So in today's session I am going to explain you about the superclass tetrapoda. So here are some basic features of the organisms that belong to the superclass tetrapoda. As I already told you that it is a superclass which comes under the subphylum of the vertebrata. Now subphylum vertebrata, it comes under which group? That is a phylum chordata. So definitely these organisms, they are having a developed vertebral column. Right? In them the notochord is separated, or it is replaced by the vertebral column. Vertebral column which provides the mechanical support to the body. It provides the site where the muscles can attach and that can help in the movement, and it is separating the nerve cord from the underlying gut, that is intestinal part or the alimentary canal. Right? So these are important features. Besides this, these organisms, they are having the jaws, right? These organisms, they are having got developed hard jaws in their mouth. And the most important point for this superclass is that the animals have two pairs of limbs. That means what? They are having total 4 limbs. And since they are having 4 limbs, therefore they are named as tetrapoda. Tetra means what? 4, and poda means foot. So these organisms, they are having 4 foot or 4 limbs, which is actually adapted for different purposes in different types of organisms. As we move in the different classes, according to complexity, according to its adaptation to the terrestrial life and other functions, the limbs are modified accordingly. But definitely they are having 4 limbs. In case of Pisces group, you remember what is present over there which supports the locomotion in those organisms? They are having fins. So instead of fins, in this superclass, the 4 limbs are present. Besides this, the endoskeleton is chiefly made up of bones. Chiefly made up of bones means what? That of course it is made up of bones, no doubt in that, but of course it is supported with different types of connective tissue also, like cartilage, like tendons, like ligaments, and so on. Right? If you remember in the group Pisces or in the superclass Pisces, what is there? The endoskeleton is either bony, it is made up of bones, or it is made up of cartilage. And this is basically forming a basic criteria for the subclassification over there, right? So this is the main difference here between the superclass Pisces and the tetrapoda. Besides this, these organisms, they are generally having the respiratory organs as the lungs. In the case of Pisces group, they are only having gills for the respiration purpose. But here in this superclass, the lungs are present definitely, And in some of the classes, or in some of the subgroups, they are having the gills also. So they may respire through the gills or by the lungs, or only by the lungs, right? What I mean by this is that some classes are there in which both organs are present. Although it is possible that some are gills are used during the larval stage and lungs in the adult stage. So accordingly, these organisms, they can respire through the gills or by the lungs, right? According to the subclassification, according to the subgroup or the different types of organisms. Now further, these organisms, they may be cold-blooded or they can be warm-blooded. So depending upon this, and of course the nature or the type of eggs they are having, they are laying, these organisms are further subclassified. So let me show you that what classes will come under the group tetrapoda. So this superclass tetrapoda, it includes 4 classes. And what are these 4 classes? You must have heard these names earlier. The superclass is Amphibia, Reptilia, Aves, and Mammalia. Amphibia, as the name is suggesting, it means amphi means two and bios means life. So these organisms, or this group includes those organisms which can lead their life in 2 different habitats. So such type of organisms, they are known as amphibians, right? Then is the reptile, and the name has been derived from the word repre. Repre means to creep or to crawl. So those organisms which are crawling on the land, they are coming under this particular group, that is Reptilia. Aves means, it is derived from the word aves, which means birds. So it includes all the birds in our surrounding. Mammalia, the word means breast, right? Or the mammary glands. Right. So this group is it is including those organisms in which the mammary glands are present and they are feeding their babies with the milk secreted by these particular glands. So this is how the superclass has been subclassified. Now let me explain the important basic features of each of the class. So students, let us first discuss about the class Amphibia. So amphibia, as I already told you, that amphi means two, and bios means life. So these are those organisms which can survive on 2 different habitats, right? They are adapted for different lives. So definitely when I am saying that they are having different habitat, so what this habitat is there for these organisms? They are living in aquatic region as well as in the terrestrial region. So usually these organisms, they are adapted for both these lives, right? Regarding aquatic system, that means regarding the water region, I should say that usually these organisms occur in fresh water, or I can say they are living in the moist places, and usually they are absent in the marine region. This is for generally true for these amphibians. And of course, when we discuss about the terrestrial region, so they are found in the definitely on the land also. And some are there which can partly live in the land and partly they can go into the water also. Over the land, I should say that there are the organisms which are living in the moist temperate region, or they are found in the tropical regions. There are the organisms which are burrowing in nature. Of course, there are some which can even live on the trees further. Right. So if they are having such different type of habitat and different types of habits, of course, so definitely they should be adapted for these lives. And for such thing, the limbs are adapted. There are 2 pairs of limbs. As I already told you, they belong to the group tetrapoda, so they are having 4 limbs. And usually in this group, that is in the amphibia, the limbs are actually modified for swimming in water and jumping on the land. So of course these organisms, they shows modifications accordingly so as to adapt to the different adapt to the life they lead on water, in water, I'm sorry, and on the land. Further, these organisms, they are having the exoskeleton. I'm sorry, these organisms, they do not have the exoskeleton. A typical exoskeleton is absent. See, amphibians, it is the first group which is actually adapted to the terrestrial life. Okay, in the previous group, that is Pisces, over there the scales were present as a exoskeleton, right? But here in this group the scales are absent. The skin is either smooth or it is rough, and it is rich in the mucus glands. Okay, and these mucus glands, they help in keeping the skin moist and slimy, and thus it is also required for the for supporting the process of respiration through the skin. Besides this, as I said that the scales are absent, so I must say at this point that there is one group, a subgroup in this class Amphibia, in which the scales are present. We will not go in so much of detail, but definitely in general the scales or the exoskeleton is absent, but the mucus glands are present. Fine. Then comes the endoskeleton. So definitely they are having a well developed system, or the well developed bony skeleton. Besides this, the body temperature, the body temperature in these organisms is not constant. It changes with the surrounding conditions, and thus these organisms, they are known as the cold-blooded organisms. So since the body temperature is it varies with the environmental temperature, so definitely when the temperature or the conditions are not favorable with respect to the temperature, these organisms, they cannot survive in a proper way, and for such type of purposes they are actually adapted with respect to the different habits, like they can undergo they can undergo in the period of hibernation, or they can go in the winter sleep, or they can undergo the summer sleep, which is known as estivation, right? These organisms, they are actually characterized with this special characteristic, which is known as the hibernation and estivation. Hibernation, which means that they can undergo the sleeping period during the winters, right? Similarly, if they are undergoing the sleeping conditions in the summers, then it is known as the estivation. Further, regarding the respiration, these organisms, they are respiring through the gills and through the lungs. And I should say that the gills are the chief respiratory organs in these particular organisms. Generally, they are respiring through the gills in their larval stages, and in their adult stages, they are respiring through the lungs. But there are some species which can respire through the gills all through their life. So in short, this point can be summarized that these organisms, they are provided with gills as well as lungs for their respiration. Gills support the life of these organisms in the water, and lungs can support the life on land, right? Besides this, the circulatory system is closed, and the heart is three-chambered. That means they are having two auricles, and there is a single ventricle. And these are, of course, they are having the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood, which is circulated in the body with the help of the blood vessels. Reproduction in these organisms is of course sexual, and fertilization, it can be either external or it can be internal, depending on the type of organism. Besides this, these organisms, they always lay egg, and thus they are known as the oviparous organisms. Oviparous means what? That they are egg-laying animals. Um, Generally, they lay eggs in water or in the moist conditions. Further, let me give you some examples with the pictures so that you can understand that which organisms are coming under this class. So common examples are like frogs, toads, salamanders, hyla, ichthyophis, that is an eel-like organisms, and so on. So here are two pictures which is showing a salamander, which is a lizard-like organism. Right, you can compare it with the lizard, but of course it belongs to the group Amphibia. Okay, then is the frog. In the frogs also there are different types of species, right, which are all coming under the group that is Amphibia. Right, so these are some of the basic examples, and they show some distinct features, right, which is used for the classification of these organisms. If you observe these two organisms, can you make out some difference? See, the salamander, it is having a long tail here, which is absent in the frog, right? And in the earlier session, I told you that the post-anal tail is a typical feature of the group Vertebrata, right? So it is absent here in frog. Then it is of course difficult to place this organism here, right? But actually, students, I told you earlier also, and I'm repeating here this point, that the tail is present either all through the life, or it is present during some stages. Like in the case of frog, it is present during the larval stage, isn't it? And of course you must be having some idea about the life cycle of the frog, so you must be knowing that these organisms, they are laying eggs in the water. The female, it lays the unfertilized egg, right, and then the males are also releasing out their own sperms, and the fusion takes place outside the body. So here the external fertilization is taking place in this species, right? So basically the second thing is that the fusion is taking outside, and then the embryo is developing. This embryo will develop into the larva, then into the tadpole, and then into the frog, the adult organism. So in this cycle you can observe that these organisms, they are leading their initial life in the water, and then they are leading the terrestrial life. So this is the typical example to explain you that why these organisms are known as the amphibians. Now I should repeat that there are some organisms which can partially live in water and partially live on the land, right? So further, the next group that we have to discuss is the Reptilia. So let me start with the next class, that is the Reptilia. So students, this name, that is Reptilia, it has been derived from the word Repre, and Repre, it means to crawl or to creep. So this class, it includes all those organisms which are able to creep over the land or the walls or the trees and so on. So these creeping creatures, they belong to the group Reptilia. These organisms, they are terrestrial. That means the habitat is terrestrial. In the earlier group, that was Amphibia, I said the organisms, they are sharing two different types of habitats. They are living on two different habitats, either completely or partially, right? That means they keep on going into the water and coming back on the land. But here, reptiles, they are generally terrestrial in their habitat, right? And over the land also, the habitat varies according to the type of the organisms. For example, some are burrowing in nature, some are living on the trees, so they are known as arboreal, or there are some which are hiding behind the rocks or living in the cracks of the walls, and so on. And there are some species which can even which is even aquatic in nature. Can you think of some example? It is like crocodile, turtles, they are aquatic, right? They are living in water also. They are coming on land as well as they are going in the water, but they are not amphibians, right? They are they belong to the group Reptilia. Besides this, these organisms, again, they are tetrapods, so they are having two pairs of limbs, right? And these limbs are basically modified for the purpose of crawling. In the earlier group, you remember there was the group in the Amphibia, how these limbs were modified? The limbs were modified over there for the purpose of jumping, right, or for the swimming purpose, right. But in this case, as they have to crawl over the land or over the surface, so they are modified accordingly. In these organisms, the exoskeleton is present. In amphibians it was absent, isn't it? But here it is present. And it is the exoskeleton which is present here, it is waterproof and is constituted by the dry and horny scales or the plates which are present in these organisms. Of course, these dry horny plates or these scales, they are secreted by the epidermis, or they are they are embedded into the into the skin or into the epidermis, and is supported by the underlying dermal plates. Uh, and these underlying dermal plates, they are bony in nature. So now you can imagine that how much strong these dry plates are, isn't it? So this is of course a very important feature of this particular group. You can just imagine the exoskeleton, or this hard exoskeleton which is present in the animals like crocodile, or in the case of turtles, how much strong exoskeleton it is. So that is an important feature of this particular group. Now, of course, as the variation occurs in different organisms, the subclassification will definitely take place. Besides this, the endoskeleton is of course bony. Regarding body temperature, these organisms are also cold-blooded. As I discussed about the amphibians, that those organisms are cold-blooded, the similar property is observed in the group Reptilia. Regarding respiration, these animals, they are having the lungs for this particular purpose, that is for the respiration. But I should say that gills are present in the during the embryonic development. So post that, these gills are totally absent, or they are not at all used in these organisms, but lung is a chief respiratory organ. Circulatory system is of course closed, and the heart is three-chambered. Three-chambered, it means they are having two auricles and they are having a single ventricle. This single ventricle is basically it is partially divided, right? Or the partition in this ventricle is incomplete. So definitely it cannot be said that it is four-chambered, or it is of course we can say that they are of course three-chambered, because the intermixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood is taking place due to the incomplete separation of these ventricles, or division of these ventricles, right? Besides this, there is the exception, that is the crocodile. And this crocodile is exceptionally having four-chambered heart. That means in this case the ventricle is completely divided into two chambers. So this is how the heart is developed in these organisms. Unlike amphibians, where the three-chambered heart is present, over there no initial separation of ventricles is observed, which begins in this group. So it is said that reptiles, they must have derived, or they must have evolved from the earlier group. And even this is not wrong to say that such type of similarity suggests that these organisms, they are having the common ancestors in their evolutionary history. So definitely when you will study about the evolution topic, you will actually come to know that which group is known as the ancestor of Reptilia and the Amphibia. Well, for your information, I can just say that of course they are having the common ancestor in their past history. Besides this, the reproduction is sexual and fertilization is internal. I'm very sorry, it is written external here, and this is wrong. By mistake it is done here. Let me correct this point here. The fertilization in this group is internal. So that means this fertilization, it takes place inside the female body, and they are further laying the eggs. That means the complete development is not taking place inside the body, right? It takes place outside the body. So for that they are laying eggs. These eggs are laid over the land. They are not laying the eggs in the water. In the case of amphibians, the females were laying eggs in the water, isn't it? Of course, the exception was there. Well, anyways, these organisms, as they are laying eggs over the land, so they are covered with a hard shell, right? Hard calcareous shell is present in these particular yolky sac or the yolky eggs. So this is a typical feature of the eggs which are laid by the amphibians, by the fishes, and by the reptiles. Fishes, they are laying eggs in the water. Amphibians also lay eggs in the water, but reptiles, they lay it on land. So these eggs are covered by the shell. Beside this, one more important point is that these organisms, they do not show the aquatic larval stage, right? These babies or the offspring is actually coming on the land directly, right? And thus these are reptiles, and they are the terrestrial organisms. So now let me give you some examples, and I will show you some of the pictures so that you can make out the important features of the organisms. So students, these are some examples like lizards, turtles, snakes, crocodile, and so on. You can see these pictures here. So you can see that how these dermal plates are present over the body of crocodile, isn't it? Snake, it is not having the limbs, isn't it? So how can we place it in the group tetrapoda? See, it is placed in the tetrapoda because other features are, of course, which they are similar to this group, and besides this, the evidences are there which shows that the limbs are present in these organisms as the vestigial organs. Vestigial organs are those which are actually they are present in an organism's body, but they have lost their function. So these limbs, they are present in these organisms as the vestigial organs, right, which are functionless. But of course, the bones or the traces are present over there, which suggests that of course it must be placed in the group Reptilia and not in the Amphibia. So these are some of the pictures, and let me end up this session with this point now, and further in the next session we will discuss further about the next group and learn the more and more things related to the topic classification. So till then, go through the sessions and the text definitely, and just revise the things so as to learn and understand the basic points of the topic classification. Okay, till then, further I will come back with the next topic. Till then, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.